Welcome back to my channel, the Storybook Lady. I'm going to be reading a story by Beatrix Potter called The Tailor of Gloucester. You can certainly read along with me, or you can listen to me read to you. In the time of swords and periwigs and full-skirted coats with flowered lappets, when gentlemen wore ruffles and gold lace waistcoats of paduasoy and taffeta, there lived a tailor in Gloucester. He sat in the window of a little shop in Westgate Street, cross-legged on a table from morning till night. One bitter cold day near Christmas, the tailor began to make a coat of cherry-coloured corded silk, the finest of wedding coats for the Mayor of Gloucester, who is to be married on Christmas Day in the morning, he muttered to himself as he worked. The table was all littered with cherry-coloured snippets. I'm sure I cannot afford to waste the smallest piece, said the tailor, as he continued cutting. 2 narrow breasts for naught, except waistcoats for mice. Now the lining. Ah, yes, just the thing, yellow taffeta. Unnoticed, little mice retrieved the scraps from his workbench and carried them off. By my whiskers, I cannot remember when we had silk of such quality on these premises, exclaimed the little mouse. Oh, yellow taffeta, just what I would have chosen myself, whispered another. My poor back, sighed the tailor, but it's done. The light is fading and I'm tired. All is ready to sew in the morning, except one item. I am wanting one single skein of cherry-coloured twisted silk thread. The old tailor locked up his shop and shuffled home through the snow. The mice were more fortunate and did not have to brave the cold, using secret passages and staircases behind the wooden wainscots of all the old houses in Gloucester. They could run from house to house. The tailor lived alone with his cat, whose name was Simpkin. All day long, while the tailor was out at work, Simpkin kept house by himself. Simpkin was also fond of the mice, but he gave them no satin for coats. Ah, Simpkin, old friend, exclaimed the tailor as he arrived home. We shall make our fortune from this coat, but I am worn to a ravelling. Now, take this groat, which is our last 4p, and buy a pennorth of bread, a pennorth of milk, and a pennorth of sausages. And Simpkin, remembered the tailor, with the last penny of our 4p, buy me 1 pennorth of cherry-coloured silk. But do not lose that last penny, Simpkin, or I am undone, and worn to a thread paper, for I have no more twist. The tailor was very tired and beginning to be ill. He sat by the hearth and talked to himself about that wonderful coat. The mayor had ordered a coat, an embroidered waistcoat, to be lined with yellow taffeta. Suddenly interrupting him were a number of little noises coming from the dresser at the other side of the kitchen. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip. Now what can that be, the tailor wondered. He crossed the kitchen and stood quite still beside the dresser, listening and peering through his spectacles. Tip-tap, 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 tip. The tailor lifted up a teacup which was upside down. Out stepped a little live lady mouse. Then out from under teacups and from under bowls and basins stepped out more little mice. Good gracious, this is very peculiar, remarked the tailor. I'll wager this is all Simpkin's doing, the rascal. Oh, was I wise to entrust my last 4p to Simpkin? And was it right to let loose those mice, undoubtedly the property of Simpkin? Simpkin returned and opened the door with an angry meow, like a cat that is vexed, for he hated the snow, and there was snow in his ears and snow in his collar at the back of his neck. He sniffed and then looked suspiciously at the dresser. The cups and jugs had been moved. Simpkin wanted his supper of a little fat mouse. Simpkin, asked the tailor anxiously, where's my twist? Simpkin was cross with his master, and if he had been able to talk he would have asked, where is my mouse? He quickly hid his twist in the teapot on the dresser and growled at the tailor. Where's my twist, Simpkin? Alack, I am undone, and I am so weak, lamented the tailor, and went sadly to bed. The poor old tailor was very ill with fever, tossing and turning in his 4-post bed, and still in his dreams he mumbled, no more twist, 21 buttonholes, to be finished by noon on Saturday, and it is already Tuesday. The little mice came out again and listened to the tailor, and they took notice of the pattern of that wonderful coat. They whispered to one another about the taffeta lining and about little mouse tippets. Indeed, what should become of the cherry-coloured coat? In the tailor's shop the embroidered silk and satin lay cut out upon the table, and who should come to sew them when the window was barred and the door was fast locked? The tailor laid ill for 3 days and 3 nights, and that it was Christmas Eve and very late at night. The moon climbed up over the roofs and chimneys. All the city of Gloucester was fast asleep under the snow. The cathedral clock struck 12 and Simpkin went out into the night. For an old story tells how all the animals can talk in the night between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in the morning, though very few people can hear them or know what it is that they say. Simpkin wandered through the streets, feeling lonely and hungry. "My master's cupboard is as empty as an old Mother Hubbard," he complained miserably. But when Simpkin turned a corner, he saw a glow of light coming from the tailor's shop. He crept up to peep in at the window. Inside the shop was a snipper-tin of scissors and a snapper-tin of thread, and little mouse voices were singing loudly and happily. 3 little mice sat down to spin. Pussy passed by and she peeped in. Simpkin meowed to get in, but the door was locked. "Dear me, and the key is under the tailor's pillow," mocked a little mouse seamstress gleefully. Simpkin came away from the shop and went home. There he found the poor old tailor without fever, sleeping peacefully. Then Simpkin went on tiptoe and took a little parcel of silk out of the teapot. He felt quite ashamed of his badness compared with those good little mice. When the tailor awoke the next morning, the first thing which he saw upon the patchwork quilt was a skein of cherry-coloured twisted silk, and beside it the repentant Simpkin. The tailor got up and dressed and went out into the street. "I have my twist," he said to himself, "but no more strength nor time than will serve to make me one single buttonhole, for this is Christmas Day in the morning. The Mayor of Gloucester is to be married by noon, and where is his cherry-coloured coat?" He unlocked the door of the little shop and looked in amazement. There, where he had left plain cuttings of silk, now lay the most beautiful coat and embroidered satin waistcoat that ever were worn by a Mayor of Gloucester. Everything was finished except for one single cherry-coloured buttonhole, and where that buttonhole was wanting, there was pinned a scrap of paper with these words in little teeny-weeny writing: "No more twist." And from then began the luck of the Tailor of Gloucester. He grew quite stout and he grew quite rich. Never was seen such ruffles or such embroidered cuffs, but his buttonholes were the greatest triumph. The stitches were so neat and so small they looked as if they had been made by little mice. There we go. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you join us again for another story. Till then, bye.